Hello everybody, this is eDoc2020. I have this nice old IBM ThinkPad X31 laptop. It's one of the last ones made by IBM before Lenovo got involved. And so this was working fine, and then was put away for a few weeks, and now it's completely dead. Like, it acts as if there's absolutely no power. The battery light doesn't come on. Of course it doesn't turn on. Nothing. Can I fix it? Stay tuned. When I first noticed something wrong with the computer, the first thing I did was to make sure it was plugged in, of course. I also checked the voltage on the power cord. Coming up 16.5 volts. For most laptops that would be low, but this is a 16 volt adapter, so that's good. Of course, even if there's a good voltage one unloaded, it doesn't mean the adapter's good. It could still fail under load, but I did use this adapter with a different computer and it did work, so that's not the issue. So like I said, this is acting completely dead. So I guess what the first thing I did, when this was still in the case, I actually tried probing random bypass capacitors on the board. Okay, I'm just clipping a wire onto the ground for easier testing. So I was testing voltages that I could see by the RAM slots. So could see these capacitors. Here we have 16.29 volts. So no power is getting into the board. So it's not like a blown fuse or a bad connector. So I also then what I ended up doing is I took out the motherboard, as you can see here, and I also was able to find the schematics for this, which I don't know if I'm going to link to them because it might be a copyright issue, but you can find them. So I started at the RTC battery because I'd actually thought that maybe the clock battery goes here is bad, and that's why it wasn't working. Because while most computers can boot without the backup battery, some don't. If I checked the voltage of the battery, it was bad, but that wasn't the issue. So I looked on page 52 of the schematics, and hopefully I can splice in a picture of that. The battery comes in on the connector, and then you can see there's a diode OR with two diodes creating the RTCVCC line. So one of them is the battery, of course, and then the other is the VCC3M line. So if the computer has normal power, VCC3M has higher voltage, and current gets drawn from that instead of the backup battery. So when the computer is plugged in, VCC3M should have 3.3 volts. This is J23 where the clock battery plugs in. 3 volts from that goes through that trace to this diode, one in the diode bridge. And here is the other diode. So this one should have the VCC3M line on one of its pins. I'll show you a better close-up if needed. And you can't see the multimeter, but it's plugged in. But there's nothing there. It's 0 volts. So the VCC3M rail's dead. So then I went and figured out where that power rail came from. It turns out that VCC3M is produced by a buck regulator from VR2, which is conveniently located directly under this cover. Okay, so there's VR2, the Max 1631. So that's a buck converter chip. Now I looked at it, the voltages seem mostly fine. So I knew the Max 1631 wasn't turning on. And in fact, I was able to measure when power is applied. The low side driver was forced on. So there's basically no way any power is getting through. So I was thinking, okay, maybe the chip's bad. So I did a little web search on it, and now I wanted to see like what a replacement would cost. Yeah, I did a search on Max 1631, and I ran into something interesting, which I'll show you a picture of and link to down below. So from this blog post, person, I think their name's Igor, they had the exact same symptom. You know, with the Max 1631 that wasn't turning on. They tried replacing the chip and it didn't work. And one thing they said is they had an oscilloscope connected when they plugged it in. They saw a quick blip. And like the 5 volt that this chip also does looked good, you know, for a few milliseconds. And the 3.3 volt rail, you know, the one we're looking at, it had like a crazy amount of ripple for those few milliseconds. And I thought maybe it was tripping the overvoltage protection in the chip. And then they replaced the capacitor, and that got rid of the ripple, and then it worked. So I'm going to basically try the same thing on mine here. So here's the bottom of my motherboard, and this here is the capacitor. It's C646 in the schematic that I was reading might have issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically, I'll try soldering a wire to it and hooking up my scope and see if I can see anything happening. One moment, please. Okay, so I have the wire soldered on and my oscilloscope lead clipped onto it. Now let's turn off the lights and look at the scope. And I don't have a storage oscilloscope, but hopefully if we see something interesting I can do I can just take a picture, just still from the video. I'll bring you back once I get something. So hopefully you could see, that looked like quite a fair amount of ripple. Almost one whole division. Yeah, with blog posts they were saying they were getting 0.4 volts, so that's about what we're getting here, so I think I need to change that capacitor. I just need to find one first. It's a It's a 6.3 volt tantalum capacitor, 330 microfarads. I'll see what I can find. I was going through my junk and I found this motherboard from a dead Dell Inspiron E1505, and this has some capacitors on it. This C522 is the closest match. It's a 220 microfarad, 6.3 volt, low ESR capacitor. It's only about 60% of the capacity, but hopefully it will work. So I'll extract it. Okay, kids, try this at home. There. Again, there's the old capacitor. Here's the new one. Pretty much the same size, but thinner. So I'll take out the old one the same way and then put the new one on. Then hopefully it works. Okay, old one's out. Now, I guess I'll basically tack down one end and, oops, almost fell off the table. Tack down one end, then the other. I'll do the negative first. Ow. I should point out, I'm not doing this the best way. Somehow I got it in place. And I just realized I did something really stupid. I put the bad capacitor back on. Oops. Whew. Okay, I finally have the new capacitor in. I'm not going to zoom in too much because I'm not too proud of this work. But I believe everything's connected. I don't think there are any shorts. Here's the power cord. I'm going to plug it in now. Hopefully nothing explodes. No explosions, that's a good sign. Get out my voltmeter. Let's check the capacitor again. So that's 3.48. Good enough. This multimeter is crap too, so it might just be like because the battery is low. Yeah, it's saying the adapter's putting out 17 volts. I think it's just reading high. And the 5 volt one's good too. I guess I'll assemble this just enough to see if it will post. Fingers crossed. Okay. The laptop's reassembled just enough to see if it will post. Moment of truth. Well, it's an improvement. That was 4 beeps. That might be because the TPM's missing. So I'll finish putting this together and we'll see if it works. In a leap of faith, I completely reassembled the computer, except for the hard drive. Hopefully it still works. By the way, this is on battery now. See that? It's booting. Or posting, rather. Actually, I remember now. I think these just take a long time to post if there isn't a hard drive. So, one moment, please. I reinstalled the hard drive, and now it works. So I'm eDoc2020. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe. You can leave a comment or question, and share this video with your friends. Thank you, and I hope to see you next time.